In 2005, the German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder lost the German elections and had to step down to make room for his successor, Angela Merkel. But before Gerhard stepped down, he had one final issue to resolve. Days before he left office, he made sure Germany signed the last necessary deals to enable the Russian gas company Gazprom to proceed with the planned gas pipeline Nord Stream. Then, just a few weeks after Gerhard Schröder stepped down as Chancellor of Germany, something remarkable happened. Gazprom, the Russian-controlled company that stood to profit from the pipeline that Schröder just weeks before had approved, appointed Gerhard Schröder to the board of Nord Stream. And by accepting this job, Gerhard Schröder earned himself a spot on the list of the most corrupt career moves of all times. Before I tell you about the next corrupt career move, I just want to say thank you to my Patreons. Your support means a lot to me. If you want to become a Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/themarketexit. Now let's continue with another corrupt career move. The US is today plagued by an epidemic of opioid addiction. An epidemic that has cost 500,000 deaths and that has led millions of Americans into addiction. Many believe that the origin of this crisis can be traced back to one specific event, or more specifically, to one specific government approval. In the 90s, the company Purdue Pharma had developed an opioid-based painkiller called OxyContin. Like all opioid-based painkillers, OxyContin was extremely addictive, but despite OxyContin's addictive properties, a staffer at the US Federal Drug Administration gave Purdue Pharma an approval to market OxyContin as less addictive than other opioids. This approval, in turn, enabled Purdue Pharma to market OxyContin so aggressively that it opened the floodgates to the still ongoing opioid crisis. After Curtis Wright gave Purdue Pharma this unprecedented approval, an approval that would enable Purdue Pharma to make billions in profits, while at the same time fueling a burgeoning addiction epidemic, Curtis Wright made a remarkable career move. He left to take a job for Purdue Pharma, earning a first-year compensation package of $400,000 and earning himself a spot on my list of the most corrupt career moves of all times. Obviously, Gerhard Schröder and Curtis Wright each deserve special chapters in the history book of corruption because of these career moves. But there are scores of other, less conspicuous career moves happening all the time. Career moves that I on some level believe are even more insidious. Let me take a few examples. In 2018, the former British Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, took a job for Facebook and is now paid handsomely by Facebook to travel the world to prevent governments from checking the power of Facebook and other big tech companies. In 2014, while Obama was still president, Obama's two top advisors, David Plouffe and Jim Messina, joined the company Uber, where they were given the task of convincing governments around the world to deregulate taxi markets. In 2010, the former Swedish finance minister, Per Nuder, took a job for private equity company EQT that invests heavily in the for-profit school and healthcare companies that can make huge tax-funded profits thanks to the deregulations that Per Nuder's own party contributed to. These are just three examples, but career moves like these are extremely common, and they are often referred to as example of a revolving door between politics and industry. I believe these career moves, the ones that happen almost all the time, on some level are more harmful. Yes, Gerhard Schröder's and Curtis Wright's career moves were spectacularly corrupt, but both of them are now ostracized figures without any real impact. Clegg, Plouffe, Messina and Nuder, on the other hand, they're still looked up to as role models. Because of them, and others like them, a whole generation of government officials will consider it completely normal to also use the revolving door one day. And what's the problem with that? why it is a problem that so many in government use the revolving door. Why should we even care what jobs former politicians take? Let's talk about that. Almost everywhere in the world, there are anti-bribery laws in place to prevent companies from giving politicians and government officials payments or other favors in exchange for beneficial treatment. For example, it's illegal almost everywhere for a pharmaceutical company to give a bribe to a government official in exchange for a drug marketing approval. So yes, anti-bribery laws can prevent overt forms of corruption. But what many fail to realize is that the revolving door can make it possible for private industry to achieve the same result as bribery, but without actually having to commit the crime of bribery. Let me explain what I mean by that. Instead of paying bribes, industry sets up a revolving door by always keeping extremely well-paid jobs open to politicians and government employees who have been pushing industry-friendly policies. Over time, every politician and government official will know that as long as they don't step on industry's toes, a cushy and well-paid private sector job will be waiting for them. And since everyone does it, there is no shame involved. Economists call this process regulatory capture and have also been able to quantitatively demonstrate the corrupting effect of the revolving door. Researchers at the University of Chicago, for example, found that patent examiners at the US Patent Office who had used the revolving door and took jobs for private industry had granted more patents compared to examiners who hadn't left for industry jobs. There are tools that we can use to prevent these corrupt career moves, tools that can be used to slow down the revolving door. For example, cool-down requirements that restrict government employees and politicians from taking certain jobs for a certain period after their government employment. Many countries also already have such laws on the books, but too often these laws are full of loopholes or aren't sufficiently enforced. For example, through the so-called Uber leaks, we recently found out that former EU Commissioner Neelie Kroes did work for Uber after she left the European Commission, but while she was still on her so-called cool-down period. The European Union Ombudsman has also found in a report that the European Commission practically always grants exemptions from the cool-down rules, meaning that the Commission's cool-down requirements aren't really used in practice. But while things are bad in the EU institutions, things are even worse in my home country, Sweden. Here we don't have any cool-down rules, and the revolving doors are spinning faster here than probably anywhere else in the world. Almost every former Swedish cabinet minister is today a lobbyist or board member of a private equity-owned for-profit school or hospital. And at the same time, Sweden has one of the most deregulated and privatized welfare sectors in the world. Isn't that a curious coincidence? For some of the videos that I've worked on for this channel, The Market Exit, I've had reason to think about the revolving door a bit from a personal perspective. For example, I made this video where I criticized private equity quite hard. And I wonder, could that video hurt my chances of ever getting a job for a company that works with or is owned by private equity? Who knows? But maybe. And I have to say that this made me think twice before I published that video. And I'm pretty sure that government officials, they also think twice before they do things that could hurt their future employment prospects. That's just human nature. My strategy for The Market Exit is to be funded by viewers so that I can make independent videos that do speak truth to power. And if you want to help me do that, you can become a Patreon at patreon.com/themarketexits. You can also help me out by sharing this video, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope that I will see you in the next one.